I want you to picture a modern data center for a second. Close your eyes if you have to, unless you're driving. Please, don't do that. But when we talk about AI or the cloud,
Yeah.
what's the image that pops into your head?
I think for most people, it's blinking lights. Rows and rows of servers. And usually when we talk about the hardware inside, we're thinking about the chips.
The chips, right.
Yeah.
The NVIDIA GPUs, the processors, the brains of the whole operation.
Exactly, the brains.
And we are obsessed with the brains. How fast does it think? How many parameters? But I want to start today's deep dive with a sort of counterintuitive idea. What happens when the world's smartest brain runs out of notebook paper?
That is a fantastic way to frame it because, thinking is great, calculating is great. But if you can't record the thought,
Yeah.
if you can't write down the answer, the intelligence is, well, functionally useless.
And that, my friend, is why we are talking about Western Digital today.
A company that, until very recently, a lot of tech investors had sort of written off as legacy.
Legacy is putting it politely. I think dinosaur was the word I heard thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
But we're digging into their Q2 2026 earnings report. It dropped yesterday, January 29th. And I have to say, looking at these transcripts, looking at the guidance, this dinosaur is sprinting.
Oh, it's not just sprinting, it's eating everyone's lunch. This report is a fascinating case study in how the physical infrastructure of the internet, the plumbing, really is going through this radical shift.
We're talking about a company that is, for all intents and purposes, sold out of its main product for the entire calendar year of 2026.
Yeah.
If you want what they're selling and you haven't bought it yet, you are out of luck.
You might be waiting until 2027, or depending on who you are, maybe even 2028.
So our mission today is to unpack this report. We need to look at the numbers. Yeah, we really need to understand the why. Why is a hard drive maker suddenly posting record growth? And what on earth is agentic AI? And why is it filling up hard drives faster than we can build them?
It really all comes down to a fundamental change in how computers are using data. It's this shift from reading to writing.
Okay, hold that thought, because I want to get to that writer versus reader idea in a minute. That's the big aha moment here. But first, we got to respect the scoreboard. Let's just look at the numbers Western Digital put up.
Okay, so the numbers were a beat across the board. Revenue came in at $3.02 billion.
Okay.
That's up 25% year over year.
25% growth for a mature hardware company is already impressive.
It is, but the revenue isn't even the most impressive part. You have to look at the profitability. Their earnings per share, their EPS, hit $2.13.
Whoa.
Which is a massive 78% jump from last year.
Nearly double the earnings on, what, 25% more revenue?
Yeah.
That tells me they aren't just selling more stuff. They're keeping way more of the money.
Exactly. And that shows up in the gross margin. It jumped to 46.1%. For context, that's an improvement of over 700 basis points from last year.
I want to pause on that 46% number. Because I think people outside of the hardware game might not realize how wild that is. Usually hardware, especially storage, it's a race to the bottom, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's a commodity. You're fighting for pennies.
Historically, yes. It's a volume game with, razor-thin margins. You undercut the other guy to move units. But when you see margins hitting 46%, that tells you the dynamic has completely flipped. They're not fighting for customers.
Customers are fighting for them.
Precisely.
Which brings us to the who. Who is buying $3 billion worth of hard drives? It's not people like us upgrading our laptops.
No. That market is flat or even declining. This is almost entirely a cloud story. Cloud revenue now makes up 89% of their total business.
89%.
That is $2.7 billion in a single quarter, coming from the hyperscalers, the Amazons, the Googles, the Microsofts of the world.
So they've basically evolved into a specialized utility provider for the cloud giants. But here's the question I was struggling with when I first read the report. The cloud isn't new. AWS has been around for, almost 20 years?
Right.
Why is there this sudden, desperate explosion in demand for storage right now in early 2026?
And this is the core insight from the earnings call. Western Digital's CEO, Irving Tan, he spent a lot of time trying to explain this to the analysts. It's not just that AI is getting bigger. It's that the behavior of AI is changing.
And this goes back to that reader versus writer thing you mentioned. Let's unpack that.
Okay, so think about the last few years of the AI boom. Let's call it phase one. That was training. You take the entire internet, Wikipedia, Reddit, every book ever scanned, and you just feed it into a massive model.
Right. The model reads it all to learn patterns. It's a library user.
Yeah, correct. It consumes the data, and that requires high-performance storage, sure. But once the model is trained, it just sort of sits there and waits for you to ask it a question. That's phase one. But we're now moving into phase two, inference and agentic AI.
Agentic AI, it sounds like a bad sci-fi movie villain. The agentic protocol, what does it actually mean in a data center?
It means the AI is no longer just a chatbot waiting for a prompt. It's an agent acting autonomously to achieve a goal. And to do that, it has to create.
Okay, give me a concrete example. How does an agent fill up a hard drive faster than a chatbot?
Okay, so imagine a software development AI. In the old days, like, 2024, you'd ask ChatGPT, write me a Python script to sort this list.
Yep.
It spits out 10 lines of code. That's a few kilobytes of text.
Negligible. Nothing.
Right. But now, with agentic AI, you tell a system, build me a fully functional e-commerce website for my coffee shop, deploy it to a server, and set up the database.
That is a much bigger ask.
And the AI doesn't just give you one answer. It writes thousands of lines of code. It creates the database structure. It generates images for the storefront. It creates log files, version histories. It runs tests, fails, creates error logs, rewrites the code, runs it again.
I see. So it's not just answering a question, it's doing work. And work generates a paper trail.
A huge paper trail. It creates massive amounts of intermediate data. And Irving Tan made this point very clearly. AI isn't just reading the internet anymore. It is actively writing to it at a speed and scale that humans, we just can't match.
So if you have millions of these agents running 247 across the globe, the amount of new data being generated every second it's exponential.
It is. Western Digital calls this the AI data cycle. Inference creates new content. That content needs a home. And here's the kicker, that new content is used to train the next generation of models.
Oh, because the AI needs to learn from the code it just wrote.
Right, which makes the model smarter, so it can do even more complex tasks, which then generates even more data. It's a flywheel. And the hard drive is the bucket that catches all of it. If the bucket overflows, the flywheel just stops.
That is a staggering realization. We're talking about the physical byproducts of digital intelligence.
Yeah.
Western Digital isn't just selling storage. They're selling the landfill space for AI's creativity.
Or the library shelf space, if you want to be more poetic about it. But yes, they're specifically selling nearline drives, the high-capacity workhorses of the data center.
But there's a problem here, right? A physical problem. You can't just keep building new data centers forever. Land is expensive. Power is limited. We know the grid is stressed. They're running out of room.
Space and power, those are the two hard constraints. You can't just add more racks if you don't have the electricity to run them or the floor space to put them. So the pressure is all on the drive manufacturers. You have to fit more data into the exact same 3.5-inch slot in the server.
You need a magic box that's bigger on the inside.
Effectively, yes. And that brings us to the technology piece of this report, which is actually pretty dense. They shipped 215 exabytes of storage this quarter.
215 exabytes. I don't even know how to visualize that.
A lot. But the key is how they did it. They're leaning on two specific technologies to squeeze more space out of thin air. The first one, the one that's driving the current profit, is UltraSMR.
Okay, we're entering acronym territory. SMR, shingled magnetic recording. I've heard this described like roof shingles.
That's the best way to think about it. On a traditional hard drive, the data tracks are laid out side by side like lanes on a highway. There's a little gap between them so the data doesn't bleed over.
Safe, reliable, easy to stay in your lane.
But it wastes space. With SMR, they overlap the tracks, just like shingles on a roof. You write one track, and then you write the next one slightly on top of the previous one.
Okay, I get how that adds space. But wait, doesn't that make it a nightmare to change the data? If I want to fix a shingle in the middle of the roof, I have to rip up all the ones above it.
You nailed it. That is exactly the trade-off. It's a read, modify, write penalty. If you want to rewrite data on an SMR drive, you have to pick up a whole block of data, modify the tiny piece you want, and then lay the whole block back down. It's slow and it's complex.
So why are the hyperscalers buying these? I mean, if speed is the game, this sounds like a step backward.
Because they don't care about random write speed for these drives. They care about density and cost per terabyte. They're archiving massive data sets. And more importantly, the Googles and Amazons of the world have the software engineering talent to manage that complexity.
So they write custom software to organize the data so they don't have to rewrite the shingles often.
Exactly. They manage the roof efficiently. Western Digital mentioned that their UltraSMR mix has now crossed 50%. So half the bits they ship are now on this shingled tech. They shipped 3.5 million of these drives in one quarter.
Wow. Okay, so shingles are the present, but the report also spent a lot of time on the future, the lasers, HAMR.
Heat-assisted magnetic recording. This is the holy grail.
Okay, now, I need you to explain this to me, because heat-assisted sounds like a marketing term, but I know there's some serious physics here. Why do we need to heat up the hard drive? Don't we usually spend millions of dollars trying to keep them cool?
It is ironic, isn't it? But it solves a fundamental physics problem we call the magnetic recording trilemma.
The trilemma sounds like a Robert Ludlum novel. What are the three parts?
To get more data on a disk, you need to make the magnetic bits smaller. That's number one, size. But if you make them too small, they become unstable. They can just flip randomly due to ambient heat and poof, your data is gone.
Okay, so you need them to be stable. That's number two.
Right. So to get stability, you use a material that's magnetically very hard, like a platinum iron alloy. It holds its magnetic state like a fortress.
Great. Small and stable, what's the third problem?
Writability. The material is so stable that the little magnetic head in the drive isn't strong enough to flip the bit. It's like trying to carve your name into a diamond with a plastic spoon. You can't write the data, so you're stuck. You can have small and writable, but it won't be stable. Or stable and small, but you can't write to it.
Unless you apply a little heat.
Enter the laser.
Exactly. HAR drives have a microscopic laser built right onto the recording head. For a nanosecond, literally a billionth of a second, it heats a tiny spot on the disk to about 400 degrees Celsius.
400 degrees inside the drive.
Just for an instant. And that heat, it softens the magnetic resistance. It temporarily turns the diamond into clay. You write the data, the laser turns off, the spot cools down instantly, and the data is locked in forever.
That is absolutely wild engineering. You have a disk spinning at thousands of RPMs, and a laser is boiling tiny spots on it billions of times a second without melting the whole drive.
It sounds like science fiction, but Western Digital says it's ready. The big news in this report was that they pulled the timeline forward. They started qualification with a major hyperscaler this month, January 2026.
They were supposed to be later than that, weren't they? They were. But the demand is so intense they are accelerating everything. They even mentioned acquiring new IP specifically for internal laser capabilities. They're vertically integrating the laser tech because it's that critical.
And the benefit isn't just capacity, it's energy too.
Yes. Irving Tan really highlighted this. HAMR allows for higher density, which means less power per terabyte. When you're running an AI cluster that consumes as much electricity as a small city, any efficiency gain is pure gold.
So let's recap. We have agentic AI creating a tsunami of data. We have UltraSMR and HAMR providing the buckets to hold it. Now let's talk about the business reality, because this is where the power dynamic really shifts.
This was the part of the transcript that it really stood out to me. Western Digital is effectively saying, we dictate the terms now.
They're sold out, effectively, for the entire calendar year of 2026.
And they have firm purchase orders to back that up. This isn't just a forecast, it's a backlog.
So if I'm a startup, or even a Tier 2 cloud provider, and I decide tomorrow I need 10,000 drives for my new data center, I'm in trouble, aren't I?
You're in a queue, and it's a long one. The top 7 customers have effectively locked up all the supply, and they're not just buying for this year. They are signing these LTAs long-term agreements.
How long is long-term in the storage world? Usually prices drop every year, so you don't want to lock in a price.
That's the old world. In this new world, they have agreements with 2 major customers through 2027 and 1 major customer all the way through 2028.
Through 2028. In the tech world, 3 years is an eternity. Why would a company lock themselves in for that long?
Fear.
Fear of what?
Supply security. I mean, think about it from Microsoft or Google's perspective. Their entire stock price, their entire future, is based on AI dominance. If they launch a new agentic model, and it works, and customers flood in, and then they literally can't save the data because they couldn't get hard drives.
That's an existential failure.
It is. It's like opening a bank but running out of vaults to put the money in, so they're paying for the guarantee. The conversation has moved from, how cheap can I get this drive, to, can you promise me in writing that I will have this drive when I need it?
That explains the pricing power. They mentioned the ASPF. The average selling price per terabyte is actually up 2–3%.
And that stability is transforming their balance sheet. It's night and day compared to a few years ago. They generated $653 million in free cash flow this quarter alone.
And what are they doing with all that cash? buying yachts?
No yachts yet. They're buying back stock $615 million worth. They declared a dividend, and they're paying down debt aggressively.
They also mentioned the SanDisk situation. They still hold shares there.
Yeah, about 7.5 million shares from the spinoff, and they plan to monetize those soon, likely a debt-for-equity swap, just to clean up the balance sheet even more.
So financially, they're building a fortress. But I want to pivot to something that might help the little guy in this story. Because right now it sounds like only the giants get the good tech. You said that SMR, the shingled tech, is really hard to use.
Right, you need a whole team of PhDs just to manage the software.
But they announced something called the JBOD.
Yes, just a bunch of disks.
I love that engineers name these things.
It's truth in advertising. But the innovation inside is what's crucial. They launched an UltraSMR-enabled JBOD platform. Basically, they took all that complicated shingled management software and built it directly into the box.
Oh, so the box handles the complexity for you.
Exactly. This democratizes the tech. Now, a research university or a smaller enterprise can buy this box and get those high-density benefits without needing to rewrite their entire software stack to handle shingled drives.
That seems like a really smart strategic move. You don't want to be dependent on just 3 customers forever. If Amazon sneezes, you don't want to catch a cold.
Precisely. It expands the whole ecosystem. It allows the broader market to catch up to the hyperscalers in terms of, efficiency.
Before we wrap up, there was one weird little nugget in the report I wanted to ask you about. Collab.
Ah, yes. The quantum play.
Western Digital is investing in quantum computing. That feels like a bit of a left turn.
It's a strategic investment. Think of it as their skunkworks. They're combining their expertise in material science. I mean, remember, they manipulate matter at the atomic level for these drives with Collab's quantum hardware design.
So they're helping build better qubits.
Effectively, yeah. They're looking at how to improve qubit performance and reliability. It's not going to make money next quarter, but it shows they're thinking about what comes after the AI boom. How do we store data for quantum computers?
It's good to see they aren't just resting on the AI laurels. So, looking at the immediate future, what's on the horizon?
February 3rd. That's the date to watch.
Innovation Day in New York City.
Yeah. We're expecting the full roadmap. They'll likely show off the specs for the next generation of HMR drives. Are we talking 40 terabytes? 50? We'll find out.
And the financial guidance implies they expect this party to just keep going.
For Q3 2026, they're guiding for $3.2 billion in revenue. That would be 40% year-over-year growth. And they expect margins to inch even higher, up to maybe 48%.
A 48% margin on a hard drive. I still can't get over that.
It just signals a fundamental structural change. Storage is no longer a commodity, it's strategic infrastructure.
So let's try to pull all this together. We've covered the numbers, the agentic shift, the laser tech, the sold-out inventory. If you had to distill this down, what is the one thing our listener needs to take away from this deep dive?
I think the synthesis is that the bottleneck for AI is shifting. We spent 2 years panicking about chips. Can we get enough H100s? Can we get enough Blackwells?
Right. It's been the NVIDIA show.
But you can have all the compute in the world. If you have nowhere to put the knowledge that compute creates, the AI stops learning. The bottleneck is becoming capacity.
It's the long-term memory of the internet.
And right now, that memory is in very, very short supply.
That's a powerful thought. The next time you see a generative AI video, or use a coding bot, realize that data isn't just floating in the ether. It is physically written on a magnetic disk, spinning at thousands of RPM inside a dark room, maybe heated by a microscopic laser for a billionth of a second.
The cloud is just millions of hard drives. That's the reality.
And here's the question I want to leave you with today. We know the big tech companies are smart. They plan years ahead. If Amazon, Microsoft, and Google have already bought up every single terabyte of high-tech storage available through 2026 and are signing contracts through 2028.
Locking in supply at any cost.
What does that tell us about the sheer scale of the AI applications they're about to launch? If they are buying storage like the world is ending, are we vastly underestimating how much memory the future is going to require?
That is the multi-billion-dollar question. And I have a feeling we're going to find out the answer sooner than we think.
Something to mull over. We'll be watching the headlines from that Innovation Day on Feb 3rd very closely to see just how big these drives are getting.
Can't wait.
That's it for this deep dive. A reminder that this conversation was custom built for you based on the Western Digital Q2 2026 reports. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.